All right. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Keeping Back AI Education. Today I'm going to show you how to use open source Nepal OSN API. I've just released a new API called Open Source Nepal. If you go to opensourcenepal.com, you will see all the available endpoints and the API that we have released. So far, we have only these endpoints available for public. However, today I'm going to show you how to use this API to create your own product or software, to be very specific, right? So this is a case where we're going to use the API endpoint on our Jupyter notebook and see what we can do from this. So if I am to run the API from the Swagger UI, what would I do is I would just go to opensourcenepal.com, then I would find the endpoint that I'm interested in, hit the try it out button, and if you notice here, I've made all the metadata available for this particular endpoints, right? So if you have interest in imports, you can just go ahead and try to explore what are the data available for these API. So you can see the parameters are limit and offset, and the limit is basically the max number of rows you'd want to get from the API, and also the offset is the number of rows that you want to skip. Let's say if you are doing some pagination, right? So you're implementing pagination feature in your application, be it a UI or mobile application, you could use the offset to create pagination effect. And yes, definitely there are other ways to doing it, but this is one of the ways or the use case where you could use limit and offset feature. And I will just go here and hit execute, and after a certain time you would get the responses here. Right, this is pretty cool, and you can grab these request URL and go to your Postman and also try it out. But I just want to utilize this UI application from Swagger to show you how we can actually run it without using any other third-party softwares. So I can see here in the imports, I can get few datas, but what do the datas actually mean? To know that, I would go here to the metadata. Param means parameters, and the return would give us the name of the columns, or you want to say keys of the values that we are interested in. So code is basically it's a code for commodity, parent, category, commodity name, imported from, things like that, right? You can go ahead and read it in your own time. But here, what I want to show real quick is how do I use this API, right? So now we have this cool application or API, but how is that actually useful to my day-to-day life? Let's say you are a data scientist or analyst or a student who is trying to learn how to do data analysis, right? So one of the ways to do that without any cost, or like the most cost-effective way, is to do it in the Jupyter Notebook or Google Colab or any other software. Now I'm gonna go ahead and write the code that I need to write to get the data from my API. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. Here I would first import the request module or library from Python. So I would say import request, right? So that would actually, this is in markdown format. I can see here it's in plain text, so I would go ahead and change it to the code format. How would I do that? Let me find the option. There should be some other way. Okay, change cell to markdown. It looks like this is a notebook format, so let me activate my environment first, right? So Python environment is my environment. Let me choose that, and now I can see Python is selected here, right? So let's import a request, right? So what would I do after I import request? Well, I would need URL information, which is simply actually, let's copy from here, right? So you can go here, you can see request URL. I would just copy this and paste it right here. And let's say I would wanna keep it simple in the URL, so I can manipulate it in the following steps. Then I can set the parameters myself. So let's say set parameters, and if you go to metadata, you can see the parameters are limit and offset, right? So let's define them. okay, this is gonna be a dictionary, so you can say limit would be, let's say for now we can make it 200, but by default it's 100. And for offset, what we can do is, let's do 0. So what is offset doing here, right? So quick question, what is offset doing? So basically offset is simply from where you want to start looking at your data, right? So since we are just starting, we want to look from the first page, that's why it's 0. But if you want to go to the next page, you can do 1 or 2 or any other slices. So since we are dealing with the first page, let's just do 0. Then now the next step is to define our response, or have some variable or some something in our memory that would collect the request from the get method. So for that, response would be request, which is the library we just imported here, and request has a method that comes by default, which is the get method. And this method, if you hover over here, you can see, well, get would get the parameters for the get would be URL, right? URL, which is defined here. Now the other thing is parameters, params equals params. So parameter would be coming from here. Cool. You can also name it differently, but let's just keep it simple. And now first of all, let's check if the request was successful. Well, what does it mean? What does it mean to call a request a successful request? Well, in HTTP, you might be familiar. If you look at the API documentation, right, the code is 200, right? So that means if I get a code back 200, that means the request is successful. If it is not, there could be some other error depending on the type of the error. The error could be different, that it could be a different topic. But what I'm saying is, for successful request operation, you have to see 200 code number. Okay, cool. So let's find that. So I would just put a comment here, status code would be 200, right? And in the following line, what I would do is if response dot status code equals 200, that way we would know, okay, this is a successful operation, right? So we would collect the data from the response. Cool. And the data would be stored as a data variable. It would come from the response, and let's convert that to JSON. Now let's print it, print the data, right? I'm just adding comment for you guys here. Okay, we have done that, print data. Now what if status code is not 200, right? We should handle the error by doing else. There are other ways in Python specific, but in this video I'm just going to use if and else and simple print statement to get the information, right? So you can already, I accidentally hit the enter button here, but I didn't print anything, any message here. So let's print some message, error, failed to retrieve data from API, from the API. All right, so let's just run it one more time, hopefully no errors. But what does this mean, right? What is the use case of this? Well, I want to show you real quick, what if request was not successful. So let's modify something here. Let's make it some intentional errors, and let's run it one more time. You should see error, failed to retrieve data from the API, right? So that means our statement is working. We can run it one more time and see we're getting the response back. Okay, so now we have the response. We have data in the JSON format. It's a list of dictionary. You can also print the type of the data here, right? So print type of the data, and let's run it one more time. You can see the type of the data, which is a list of dictionary. So the whole thing is list, and list has dictionaries inside it. All right, so that is cool. Now the next step is, what can I do with this JSON format data, right? What can I do with this data? For that, we might have to use some other libraries such as pandas to convert it to some other tabular format so that we can do more operation and analysis on top of it. How do I do that? Well, in Python, we can import the library called pandas. For that, I would just go on the top and call it import pandas as PD, right? So that would import pandas library as PD, which is the ADS. So we have to run it one more time. For that purpose, let me make another cell where I would only put my imports so that I don't have to rerun all the API calls, which can be expensive. Okay, so let's run it here. It's working, and this cell is already working. And over here, what we can do, we need to convert these to data frame. So convert JSON to df, right? So you can see it is not printed. So let's write my column and run this cell again. So for the time being, I'm gonna hide that. So you can see the first index would give us this information. But how do we extract the keys so that we can confirm these are the name of the columns that we have in our API, right? So let's do it here. Let's create a new cell. So over here, our goal is to extract the columns from the keys, right? Extract columns from keys. Well, to do that, we would need to define, let's write it. Actually, we've already called it my column, right? So my columns would be my columns because this is already here. And we can just do dot keys, right? So it would just print the keys of my columns data frame or dictionary. Okay, so what if I print my columns now? What does it give me? Well, dictionary keys object has no attribute keys. Why is that? That is because my column was, let's check the type of my column. Well, it's a dictionary. Then why dictionary doesn't have? Okay, there we go. So we have the dictionary keys, my columns, it gives us the keys, right? But how do we convert these keys as a name of our data frame columns? So to do that, let's create a new cell that has df equals pd.dataframe, and inside here, what I'm gonna call is my columns. Actually, let's convert all the data equals data, and that would get the columns equals my columns, right? So data equals data. Let's see what happens. And now let's print df.head. It would give us the top rows. There we go. So we have all the responses converted back to the tabular form. Now from here, I can continue on doing some EDAs or some analysis. You can do whatever you want to do, right? So since I'm just doing head, I can only get 5 by default, but you can also call 100 here, so you would get 100 rows. There we go, right? So this is how we usually start working from the API. So thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. Please consider subscribing. I'll catch you guys next time.